I just watched Godzilla Minus One, and wow. Now, I'm not a die-hard Godzilla fan by any means. I've seen a few of the movies, but I'll be honest, I might just be a die-hard Godzilla fan now because this movie was really good. And obviously, I'm not the first person to have this take. I mean, it even won an Academy Award, but on top of just being a great movie with great writing and great performances, I think this movie works extremely well in the context of Godzilla as a franchise. In what has become an increasingly bloated and convoluted IP, Minus One just shines that much more, not only as a standalone monster movie, but also as a faithful reimagining of the original 1954 classic. I think most people know by now that Godzilla was initially created as a metaphor for the atomic bomb, and the original film, made less than a decade after the pair of bombs devastated Japan, never shies away from this metaphor. Godzilla is a soulless, destructive monster that destroys anything and everything in his path. The film's director, Ishiro Honda, a veteran of World War II himself, once said that his goal with Godzilla was to make radiation visible. And as we watch as Tokyo crumbles to pieces and innocent civilians scream in terror, I can't imagine Honda didn't at least partially succeed. Beneath all of its pop culture defining images and special effects, the original Godzilla is a deeply emotional meditation on the national consciousness of post-war Japan. In the decades to follow, Godzilla strayed further and further from this initial social commentary and dove deeper into the weirder side of the kaiju genre. Instead of being deeply personal stories of Japanese tragedy and resilience, Godzilla became a vessel for action and battle. Now don't get me wrong, I definitely think these movies have every right to exist and have plenty of artistic value. I'm only saying that they lost sight of what made Honda's original so great. So for years, audiences were deprived of an emotionally coherent Godzilla story that could proudly stand next to the 1954 classic. Until last year. Dare I say, Godzilla Minus One might just be better than the original. Finally, a creative team behind a Godzilla movie realized that you don't have to sacrifice the size and the spectacle to incorporate the quiet and the heart. And since these are the two major forces at play with Minus One, it's a constant balancing act, but one that this movie entirely pulls off. To make a Godzilla movie so emotionally gripping is honestly a flex. Instead of shying away from the monster's origin and trying to make something brand new, Minus One is very willing to look back at the history of Godzilla as a character, to take what has worked and scrap what hasn't. This movie borrows a lot from Godzilla 1954, but not in the vein of recent Hollywood remakes. Instead of calling back to the classic in the interest of fan service, Minus One uses the genius of the original to reinforce its message. This isn't a movie about the monster as much as it's a movie about the people that will be affected by the monster. The characters are genuinely well written. They're human beings instead of random vessels used to progress the plot. When I was watching Godzilla vs. Kong and any human character opened their mouth, I was on my hands and knees begging my TV to cut back to the big lizard and the big monkey. But with this movie, no human scene is wasted. In fact, every scene involving our protagonist is there to justify how epic the movie's finale is. That's just good writing. But to compare the recent Warner Bros. Godzilla movies to Minus One is like comparing Rebel Moon to the original Star Wars trilogy. You kinda just can't do it. I could say 100 things this movie did right, but above all is its ability to be faithful but also remain fresh. With its pacing and its special effects, this movie is able to recontextualize itself for a 21st century audience, whilst never losing sight of its atomic origins. On top of the theme song, Godzilla's movement, and the post-war setting, there's one other major ingredient that director Takashi Yamazaki borrowed from Godzilla 1954. Its spirit. And for that reason, I think Ishiro Honda would have truly enjoyed Minus One. Thanks for watching.